The Green Bay Packers will open the 2023 season at Chicago, where Jordan Love will make his first start as the full-time primary starter of the Green Bay Packers and will look to establish his ownership of the Chicago Bears. So I think there's a few interesting points about the schedule before we get into the full thing. Unlike last year, we only have 2 consecutive away games at any given point. Same with 2 consecutive home games, which is kind of nice from a balance perspective. The schedule is balanced in the number of home and away games in a consecutive order. So you're not having a long 3-4 game road stretch where you're out there. The interesting thing though is early on in the season, we do have a stretch of 3 games. 2 of them are at home, but 3 games in 11 calendar days to start the season. That's weeks 2 through week 4. Part of that is kind of nice leading into, a week 6 bye that we probably will need a little bit of time to recover in that kind of workload, but that does leave 12 games following the bye week, which is also a bit of a daunting task. If we're able to put together a quality season and compete for a playoff run, you're looking at that point, 12, 13, and more games as you get into the playoffs. So not the best timing, but it's also not as bad as, a week 4 bye like we recently had. All right, following week 1, where we open against the Bears in Chicago, we'll be at Atlanta, a game that I intend to be at. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be a bit of a test as, one of the top rushing teams from last year, whereas we weren't, quite on top of our game as a rush defense. And usually it takes us a little while with Joe Barry to kind of get the defense rolling. So week 2 against a premier running attack, who's also added to that with Bijan Robinson. So that should be a challenge there on defense, but I think that'll be a fun game. After that, we'll be at home for the next 2. Again, this is that stretch of 3 games in 11 days. So, a week later, we're at home against the Saints, who are coming off the Carolina Panthers. So, a tough divisional matchup the week before that for them. Following that week will be a short turnaround to a Thursday night game against the Detroit Lions. Interestingly enough, both of our games against Detroit are Thursday night games this year. Our second matchup is in Detroit on Thanksgiving Day. Just a classic matchup of Packers versus Lions on Thanksgiving. But just kind of odd that we're playing both of our games against them on Thursday nights. After that, we'll be playing at Las Vegas. Our first real look at, Devontae Adams coming back against the Packers, and then also facing off with Jair, which should be a fun day matching up there. After that game is our bye week, week 6, and then following up with week 7, we'll be playing at Denver. So we've got a little bit of a rest advantage playing at Denver. But unfortunately, Denver did play the Thursday night game in week 6, so it's not a full extra week of advantage. It's 4 days extra, but still we'll take that. After that, we'll be at home against Minnesota, and Minnesota will be coming off of a game at the 49ers. And the 49ers, it's a bit of a up in the air how well they're going to play, especially the question marks at quarterback with them. But I expect Kyle Shanahan to have that team, kind of put together well. He's just such an outstanding coach. I think they're going to remain competitive regardless. After that, we'll be again at home against the Rams, who in the LaFleur era, we've done very well against the Rams. So I look forward to that, and chalk that up as hopefully a win. And then we'll be going on the road to Pittsburgh the week after that. And Pittsburgh will have an extra 3-day rest advantage on us because they'll have played Thursday night against the Tennessee Titans before that. So after that, we'll be at home against the Chargers. It'll be a nice little matchup of Jordan Love against another quarterback from his draft class in Justin Herbert. kind of see where he measures up. While Herbert's played since he's come into the league for the most part, Jordan Love is just getting his first crack to do that full time. So look forward to seeing that as well. Then after that, as previously mentioned, we're at Detroit for Thanksgiving. A little bit of extra time as we'll be then playing on Sunday night the following week against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs will have played the week before on Sunday, so extra couple days rest there as well. Going again with essentially our third kind of primetime game. I mean, it's not primetime on Thursday night necessarily, but Thursday night, a non-regular scheduled game, going to Sunday night against the Chiefs, and then scheduled for Monday night against the Giants, who are coming off their bye week. So they'll have a full week of extra rest on us there as well. So that should be a challenging game with their extra rest, and then the fact that we'll be coming off of the Chiefs, who are going to inevitably be a tough team. Then in week 15, we'll be at home against Tampa. Tampa coming to Green Bay. It's December 17th, so it's going to be cold, and Tampa will hopefully not be have all their wits about them as they're playing in cold weather. We don't need to talk about that playoff game, though. You know the one I mean. After that, we'll be at Carolina, who's coming off a game in Atlanta. Really, they're coming off 3 straight divisional games, so it's going to be a pretty hard-fought stretch for them. So hopefully, they're just kind of feeling the pressure and the fatigue of really bringing their A game for 3 straight weeks against divisional foes. When, I wouldn't be surprised if they're, competitive within the AFC South, or within the NFC South, rather. Another point within that game is we're not 100% sure about, kind of any rest advantage with that game. The game the week before that for Carolina, where they're playing the Falcons, that hasn't been scheduled yet. So we don't know what day of the week. It could be a Saturday, it could be Sunday, it could be flexed to, Thursday night. Any of those possibilities could be there. So we might be at a rest advantage, or we might have a little bit of advantage. But time will tell with that. It's notable to say also, some of these later season games that we have that are scheduled for primetime now could be flexed based on, the potential schedule flexing decisions that haven't been made yet at the owners' meeting. So we'll see, if any of that changes. But just be aware, there's still some things that are up in the air with that one until we see what that schedule looks like. After that, we'll finish the last 2 games of the season against divisional foes. First, we'll be at Minnesota, week 17, who they'll be coming off Detroit. So I expect the NFC North to be pretty competitive this year, pretty close, tight race. So finishing with 2 divisional games, and especially where Detroit's probably going to be in the mix with that, and Minnesota coming off of Detroit could have just had a hell of a battle the week before that. So just keep that in mind, and then finishing at home against Chicago in week 18. So I'm looking forward to this schedule. I think it's well balanced. I mean, we were still scheduled for 5 primetime games this year, which is 10 seasons in a row now that we've had 5 primetime games on our schedule. A lot of that is credited to the fact that we've had Aaron Rodgers, and as long as we've had Aaron Rodgers, we've generally been in some kind of contention to make either a playoff run or make a run at the Super Bowl. So Packers fans, in my mind, are the best fans in the world. They travel extremely well, and they always tune in to watch their team. So the NFL can rely on at least a pretty large population of people who are going to tune in and week out to watch those games. So it's an easy, leap to see that the Packers should be scheduled for primetime games. Interesting enough, the ones that we did see, though, with, Detroit should be a great game. Kansas City should also be a good game if we can put together the season that I'm imagining we will. The Giants should be an interesting game, especially with the fact that they'll have that week's rest advantage on us. Um, Minnesota, another primetime game there. I guess I should have said both Detroit games since they're both Thursday night games. 3 divisional games in primetime. What's better to see? You want to see the Packers play meaningful games in primetime. If I have to think about what the toughest part of the schedule is here, I'm imagining it's those 3 games in 11 days. Coming out of, you know, the summer from training camp, still getting your legs under you, getting conditioning. A lot of times that first quarter of the season is really just kind of getting fully up to football shape because training camp doesn't really prepare you for the rigors of, you know, game in, game out, like that level of intensity, that, the level of endurance that you need to sustain yourself for that. So I think that's going to be a really challenging thing for the Packers as, 3 of their first 4 games are, within an 11-day period. So I'm grateful for the fact that we've got an early bye so they can recover and kind of put things back together following that. There's going to be a lot of challenges for Matt LaFleur to figure out how to get his guys adequate rest throughout the rest of that season over the final 12 games. The schedule's out there. Let me know in the comments, what do you think is, the most exciting part of the schedule for you? And if you're going to a game, let me know which game you're planning on going to.